Redwood News at 5.
Good evening and thanks for choosing Redwood News. I'm John Kennedy O'Connor. We begin with the latest on that bombshell document indicating that the US Supreme Court is prepared to overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade decision. As our Karen Kafer shows us, reaction has been fierce on both sides of the abortion rights issue.
President Joe Biden describing a draft opinion by the Supreme Court that would overturn Roe v. Wade as radical.
It would mean that every other decision relating to the notion of privacy is thrown into question.
The Supreme Court has confirmed the authenticity of the document published by Politico Monday night, a draft of a majority opinion in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, a case regarding Mississippi's law banning most abortions after 15 weeks. The case is a direct challenge to the precedent established in Roe v. Wade in 1973 and affirmed in Planned Parenthood v. Casey in 1992. The government cannot interfere with an individual's choice to terminate a pregnancy before viability outside the womb at about 23 weeks. A right protected under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. The draft, written by conservative Justice Samuel Alito, describes the reasoning in Roe as exceptionally weak. On Capitol Hill, Senate Democrats, without enough votes to codify the right to an abortion into law, laying blame for the potential reversal.
Women in this country are paying for the fact that the Republicans have basically sabotaged the Supreme Court.
While Republicans critical of how the draft came to light.
This lawless action should be investigated and punished.
Chief Justice John Roberts said in a statement he has ordered an investigation. The Supreme Court said Tuesday the document is not a final opinion. The highly anticipated opinion is expected to be among the last issued this term in late June or July. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafer.
And there's more legal wrangling to tell you about this evening. It involves Humboldt County putting the San Francisco District Attorney on notice that he could be sued over fentanyl overdoses here along the North Coast. The Board of Supervisors voted unanimously today to send a letter to that DA about his failure to shut down an open-air drug market in San Francisco's Tenderloin district. It's that area where Humboldt's sheriff and supervisors say drug dealers are stocking up on fentanyl and then smuggling it back up here for sale locally. The letter says Humboldt County may consider taking legal action if the San Francisco DA fails to act. Officials say they're fed up with opioid overdose deaths, which now make up 10% of all deaths in Humboldt County and are outpacing deaths from COVID-19.
County, specifically to the Tenderloin district in San Francisco, back into Humboldt County, at which time we would make enforcement stops, serve search warrants, and seize amounts of fentanyl. In 2022, just in the first 4 months, we have 15. In 2021, we seized 13 pounds of fentanyl in Humboldt County. Already in the first 4 months of 2022, we've seized almost 36 pounds of fentanyl coming into Humboldt County. It's really alarming numbers.
Meanwhile, there's another big legal development unfolding involving Humboldt County and its embattled auditor-controller. Supervisors went behind closed doors today to discuss a lawsuit just filed by the state against the county and auditor-controller Karen Paz-Dominguez. That lawsuit says Ms. Paz-Dominguez has failed to comply with government-mandated financial reporting requirements. It asked a judge to fine Ms. Paz-Dominguez $10,000 and the county $2,000 for failure to submit financial reports on time. The suit also asked the court to order the auditor-controller to perform her job duties as required by law. Elsewhere, Humboldt County elections officials are getting ready for the upcoming June election. They conducted hours of testing today on elections equipment, ensuring their system can be read and count the ballots. It's part of a process the elections office goes through every election cycle to ensure that the public votes are tallied accurately.
It's a transparent process that the public can come in and participate in. So we have pre-printed the ballots. We know what the expected outcome is. And then we run it through our tabulation system and have our observers who are participating in the logic and accuracy test verify that, yes, in fact, the system is working correctly. And it just reassures the voters that prior to any ballots going out for people to vote on, that the system is working accurately and tabulating correctly.
Anticipation and excitement filled the air today, with the largest cruise ship ever to dock in Humboldt Bay arriving in Eureka. The Seven Seas Mariner dropped off a couple hundred tourists this morning to spend the day in Eureka before the ship heads down the coast to San Francisco tonight. The massive cruise ship is over 700 feet and more than 48,000 tons. It is something the community has been looking forward to for a long time. Having cruise ships like the Seven Seas Mariner dock in Eureka will give a boost to the local economy, and officials hope to see more of them in the future.
The maritime industry is really a strong presence in Humboldt County. Those are the initial jobs that we're going to start to see, and these are living wage jobs for working class people. And then once the cruise ship gets off port and people start to go out and shop and looking for things to buy in the community and see all the great things that our community has to offer. It's not a panacea, but it's really a great addition to our community, and we should all be celebrating today.
And coming up on Redwood News at 6, our Aurora Murray introduces us to some passengers aboard that massive ship who are visiting the North Coast for the first time. Condors today flew over Northern California's iconic redwoods for the first time in more than a century, thanks to the Yurok tribe. You can watch the moment here that some young condors took flight along the North Coast. The Yurok tribe are reintroducing young condors into their ancestral skies, along with some assistance from the Redwood National and State Parks. The birds left a flight pen and immediately started flying over the redwoods. The releases come after several years of planning and nearly 100 years after condors disappeared locally. A Del Norte County conservation group is calling for a restriction on chemical transportation through the Smith River Canyon. It comes in the wake of a massive tar spill last week on US Highway 199. A Klamath Falls truck driver is facing charges after his big rig struck a power pole along the highway between Hiochi and Gasquet. The crash impact caused his truck's trailer to overturn, spilling thousands of gallons of tar, with up to 400 of those gallons reaching the Smith River. As cleanup continues from that spill, the group Friends of Del Norte says steps must be taken to protect water quality because the river provides drinking water for many communities. Elsewhere, the damage assessment and cleanup continues in the Sunnybrae area of Arcata. That's where wind gusts brought down a redwood tree onto a home yesterday evening along Beverly Drive. Fortunately, there were no injuries. That tree also brought down some power lines and left hundreds in the area without power for hours into the night. There are questions being raised about the mental competency of a Kneeland murder suspect who fled into a forest to escape police. A judge today ordered a psychiatric evaluation of 27-year-old Austin Michael Medeiros, who is being held on $1 million bond. Medeiros was the subject of a manhunt after fleeing into the Arcata Community Forest following the death of a Kneeland woman in her own home. He was later captured down in Santa Cruz and brought back here to Humboldt, where he is also accused now of attacking a jail deputy. It's been a solemn day for the California Highway Patrol as they remember slain colleagues. The annual CHP memorial ceremony was held earlier today at CHP headquarters in Sacramento. That ceremony was held to honour and pay respect to all of the officers who have died in the line of duty and their families. Governor Gavin Newsom delivered the remarks at the ceremony.
About family. I don't know what else there is. And so we're mourning the loss of your loved one. And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry you have to be here again and again, and all the emotions and reflections. I can't even imagine what you're going through. And so from the bottom of my heart, I just want to express my deepest sympathies and condolences. And I know it's so often the rote and cliched words, particularly from elected officials. They're familiar. And perhaps some of the words I'll use are familiar. But please know they're not rote. They're not cliched. They're real. They're heartfelt. And I hope you know, and I think that's reflected in just listening to the names of hundreds and hundreds of officers' lives lost, that when people here at the CHP talk about never forgetting, they mean it. And that's a pretty powerful and special thing.
Now turning to the latest on COVID-19, Del Norte County is reporting virus data twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So here's a look at today's newly released numbers. The number of active cases as of today is 56, with 34 new cases tallied since last Thursday. The cumulative case count is now at 6,317. Excuse me. There is just one COVID hospitalisation currently, while the death count remains at 48. As for Humboldt County, a reminder that it is only reporting COVID-19 data once a week, and that occurs on Wednesday. So we'll bring you those updated numbers tomorrow when we receive them. Coming up after this short break, What are Vladimir Putin's next steps in Russia's Ukraine campaign? We'll have a full report. Stay with us, we'll be right back. There's word tonight that Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to formally declare war on Ukraine within days, and fully mobilise his invasion effort has faltered. Our Gloria Pazmina has those details, along with a look at both scenes of relief and horror coming out of Ukraine.
Reunited at last. Evacuees from Mariupol's embattled Azovstal steel plant arrived in Zaporizhzhia by the busloads Tuesday. It's part of an ongoing effort to rescue thousands of Ukrainian civilians from the besieged city of Mariupol. While some arrived to safety, tensions remain high back at the steel plant where hundreds of civilians and soldiers remain. A commander for Ukrainian soldiers said heavy shelling continues at the complex.
We get civilians out of the rubble with ropes. It's the elderly, women, and children.
Meanwhile, U.S. and Western officials believe Russian President Vladimir Putin is one step closer to formally declaring war on Ukraine as soon as May 9th, known as Russia's Victory Day, commemorating the Russian defeat of the Nazis in 1945.
We've seen the Russians really double down on their propaganda efforts, probably, almost certainly, as a means to distract from their tactical and strategic failures on the battlefield in Ukraine.
An official declaration of war would allow Putin to fully mobilize Russia's reserve forces as efforts to take territory in the east and south continue to falter and manpower dwindles.
They have not achieved really any of the strategic objectives that Mr. Putin set out for, and the Ukrainians are fighting back stiffly, bravely, nimbly, skillfully.
Gloria Pazmino, Redwood News.
And coming up next, Chief Meteorologist Dan Romano will be here with your Weather Authority forecast. Please stay with us, we'll be right back. Conference semi-finals, the Warriors' Draymond Green vows never to change. The NBA says it won't reduce or rescind the flagrant 2-foul assessed to Green in Sunday's win, which resulted in his ejection. That foul call resulted in widespread criticism of the NBA's officiating. The Warriors say they're not surprised by the NBA's decision not to downgrade. Game 2 against the Grizzlies takes place tonight. Now to baseball, where a fan at an Oakland's A game shows us how not to catch a foul ball. He spills beer all over his girlfriend and he doesn't even get the ball. Take a look.
She shows up at the ballpark. She's thinking, yeah, foul ball, that'd be great. Don't need a shower, though.
Plus, is the food ruined?
Oh, yeah, those nachos. She shows up at the ballpark. She's thinking, yeah.
And that's all from sports. More news and weather after this break. We'll be right back.
John Kennedy, over to you.
Do you ever head for heights?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I certainly don't. Before we go this evening, a man scales the 61-floor Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, climbing all the way up from the ground to reach the top of the skyscraper. The man scaled the building this morning. People observed him climbing the tower under his own power, wearing climbing gear but with no safety equipment. Streets in the area were closed as a safety precaution, and police detained the man when he reached the top. The 1,070-foot Salesforce building is the tallest building in the entire West Coast and also the nation's 17th tallest building. That makes me really scared.
Yeah, no safety. No. Yeah.
Well, he made it. Good. Kudos to him in some respects, I would say.
Hey, whatever.
Yeah, you won't catch me doing that.
Yeah, nah.
Thanks so much for joining us at 5. We'll be back at 6. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
Take it easy, everybody.